Hello, welcome again to another edition of On the Spot. I'm Christopher Taylor with My Astro Chris, and you're back on the spot with me. Today is Monday, February 7th. We're about a week away from Valentine's Day, and the reading we have today is very fitting because what I pull out of this chart this week definitely revolves around relationships. Okay, so we're going to focus in on that one key area for this person. Just so happens that that's something that's pretty well highlighted going back a year or so and for the next 3 years or so. Okay, so very intense time for this person with regards to relationships as well as possibly finances and things, but I feel pretty strongly that this is more about relationships than the finance, but she'll probably feel a little bit of both. Anyway, so the person that I'm reading this week, she's actually a Leo, okay, but that's not going to really factor in to this reading at all. What I'm going to focus on, you can see her chart right here. Now if you look to the bottom, that planet Venus, Venus is in the sign of Cancer at about 8 degrees of Cancer. Okay, so Cancer is one of the 4 cardinal signs, and if you listened to my On the Spots before, you know that the cardinal signs, especially the early degrees of cardinals, so say the first 5 or so degrees, in this case we're talking about 8 degrees of Cancer with her Venus, but it's within this zone of early cardinal signs. This is a zone that's getting hit pretty heavily by outer planets. The outer planets being Pluto, Neptune, Uranus, Saturn, and Jupiter. Okay, and so we'll talk about which of these planets are hitting Venus, forming angles and things like that. But in any case, we're focusing in on that piece of her chart. We don't care that she's a Leo this time around. We're not looking at her rising sign. We're looking at that Venus in Cancer down at the bottom of her chart in the 4th house. All right, and so what Venus represents in general is relationships and finance. Why does it represent those things? Well, it's not like these two random things happen to be coinciding. Both what we spend our money on, what we purchase, what we collect, and who we spend our time with, the people in our lives, are a reflection of our values, period. And so Venus really, at the heart of it, is about values. What we value and who we value. And so what we value is reflected in what we purchase, what we choose over what we don't choose. People in our lives are a reflection of what we value in other people. So that's where relationships come in. So Venus is about our values, and so this is when Venus is under duress or under a lot of transits, it's a time when our values are shifting in some level, okay? And so we're going to get a little bit more specific about her journey with some timelines and things coming up. All right, so first thing I want to talk about then is this planet Venus. I want to go back to about 2003, okay? And so this is something only she is going to be able to pull up, but it was around 2003 that the planet Saturn was down at the bottom of her chart forming a conjunction with Venus. Saturn was in the early parts of Cancer, okay? And so when Saturn conjuncts your Venus, it's a time of making decisions that have a long-term ripple effect down the line. And they're usually pretty permanent kind of decisions about romance, relationships, finances, things like that. So whatever decision she made back in 2003, this is what's kind of coming up for review, adjustment, almost like a reaping of what was sown back then in some ways. And in some cases, it's just more about moving things around. So whatever she decided, it could have been something like getting married in 2003, or deciding to break off a relationship, or deciding to work for herself and earn income on her own rather than depending on an employer. Or it could have been the opposite, deciding to not work for herself anymore and to go with an employer. The point is, whatever she decided within her free will, it set the stage, and now we're dealing with the ripple effects of what she set. So she's the only one that's going to know what this is, all right? But now we'll talk about how whatever she decided back in 2003 is kind of under review, all right? And so we can go back all the way to 2009 now, because now we're getting more to the recent period. If we go back to the fall of 2009, this is when Saturn first crossed over her 7th house cusp, the very right side of the chart. And so the 7th house deals with others, our relationships, how we harmonize. So it's other people in our lives. It's what we're projecting onto others and things like that. When Saturn is in our 7th house, in her case, this is a good 3 or 4 year period, actually roughly 4 year period of Saturn in her 7th house. pretty long period of time. Usually it's going to be about 2 years, but she's getting about a 4-year dose, starting in the fall of '09, ending in about the fall of 2013, actually. So that 4-year period. But this was the initiation point in the fall of '09. Fall of '09 through summer of 2010 was this realization that, oh, my relationships need to be adjusted. I'm letting people walk all over me in this realm, or there's something on my end that I have to adjust to better harmonize with others. And this can be romance, business, etc. It doesn't matter. But there was some sense of realization between the fall of '09 and the summer of 2010 that she needs to make some adjustments. Then by the end of the summer of 2010 and into the fall, around early October 2010, okay, this is when Saturn formed an exact square to that Venus down at the bottom of her chart. So you can see Saturn up there in the right, and it was forming a 90-degree angle. So this is kind of the first period of cultivation of the seeds that she sowed back in 2003. So 2003, she sowed some seeds regarding relationships, finance. October of 2010, now is the time to kind of go, okay, why is this working for me or is it not working for me? And how do I make adjustments? So for example, if she decided to get married in 2003, that's just an example, then this time around it could be a period of adjustment for that marriage. If she decided to go work for herself in 2003 to earn income on her own, this could be a time of questioning that as far as, business might be slow or something like that. So it depends on what she chose in 2003, but whatever that was, it's October of 2010 that this comes up for its review period. And she had a good 1-year preview of this when Saturn entered the 7th house in fall of '09. Okay, so that takes us to the fall of 2010 period. The themes that came up in the fall of 2010, that is what we're going to be talking about from here on out. So those themes of adjusting what was decided back in 2003. Coming up on the heels of this Saturn square to her Venus in October, we have in early March of 2011, so today is February 7th, just about a month from now, we have in early March the planet Jupiter, which will form a square on the other side of Venus. So it'll be what's called a waning square, whereas the Saturn square was a waxing square, okay? So Jupiter is in her first house. It's kind of a time period in general where she's expanding her activities and there's a lot of growth going on a personal level, things like that. And Jupiter's about to square Venus from this location. And so Jupiter square Venus, in general, it can be a pretty positive kind of a transit. It feels like, life is kind of working out for us and things like that. And like, oh, this is a great time period of growth, etc. But it can be a little overindulgent as well, okay? And so Jupiter squaring Venus is oftentimes too, can sometimes be opportunities that come to us that we either don't take advantage of or that we take too far. And that's usually, the second part of that is usually the more common application of that is we take something too far or overindulgent in it. Okay, so something happens in early March of 2011 here coming up, and this will go back to what was going on in October of 2010 with Saturn. Same kind of theme. So in October there was some sense of trying to corral or to box in or formulate some way of dealing with finances and romance. In March it's going to be more like, come what may, let the chips fall where they fall. A little bit more of an openness, but again, it could be taken too far in some ways. And then in just a few weeks after that, the planet Pluto, if you look up to the top of the chart, Pluto is about to start a long-term opposition. This will start, the very inklings of it will start in April, early April of 2011, and they won't be over until about November of 2013. So a very long period of time where Pluto will be in this active opposition to Venus. But it's really more of a preview here coming up in April. Kind of the first couple of weeks of April will be a preview of some really deep transformation and more of a reality coming to the surface with regards to relationships and finance. So in early March, it could be almost like a head in the clouds, not looking at reality for what it is kind of time period. Then April hits and it's kind of like, whoa, what's the reality of what I've created with finance and relationships, okay? And so that's what the Pluto experience is. It'll be a glimpse here in early April. It won't come back for its really strong period until 2012 and 2013. Those 2 years will be the the bulk of her coming to an awareness that things really have to change, relative to this original decision back in 2003. Okay, that parts of it are not working and parts of it need to be very adjusted in ways that aren't so subtle. We'll put it that way. So intense kind of adjustments is what we're talking about. And so that will go on again for 2 years with the glimpse of it here in April. All right, and she'll know what that is. All right, and so the last piece I want to talk about is the planet Uranus. All right, this planet is kind of over where Jupiter is on the left side of the chart, and this isn't going to really start anything until 2012. Okay, it will be about spring, summer of 2012, and it'll last about a year and a half till about the end of 2013 again. So that's why it takes us out to 2013 with Pluto and Uranus, that whole period. Really the 2-year period, it'll be Pluto opposing Venus with Uranus squaring Venus, and that's going to be a pretty intense time of readjustment and reformulating how she relates to others, how her relationships are set up, or how she earns money, and what she's willing to do to make sure she's secure in her finances and things like that. So the Uranian part will be a pretty exciting period. And it will only be able or allowed to come in with the transformations that have to happen during that Pluto transition. So Pluto is kind of what almost kills off those pieces of her that no longer serve, and then Uranus comes in and offers new opportunities in this realm of relationships and finance. Okay, so to sum it up, if we go all the way back, 2003, very important time for setting the stage for relationships and finance for this individual. Okay, fall of 2009 comes up, and she starts to think adjustments now need to be made. And Saturn's going to be, this is when Saturn entered the 7th house. It'll be there to the end of 2013. It's no coincidence that this is the end of 2013 is when Pluto and Uranus end their transits to Venus. Which we're all talking about relationships here, okay? And so 2009 was his first inkling of adjustments needing to be made. And then by summer of 2010 into the fall of 2010, it was very clear what had to be done. And now we're getting into the spring here, March and April, and there's going to be some evidence almost of the results of those adjustments, okay? And some evidence that things need to change drastically to allow what's going to come in here in 2012, 2013. Because what comes in 2012, 2013, that can be very exciting. It can only be coming in if those parts of her are broken off that are blocking this excitement from coming in the first place. Okay? So that about wraps it up. Again, I'm Christopher Taylor with My Astro Chris. This has been On the Spot. If you're interested in your own On the Spot, you can contact me through myastrochris.com, or for full readings, check out myastrochris.com. Go to my personal consultation section, and there's plenty of things to pick from there, and I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks again.